All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Stephanie McKenny, and we are in our topic, Family Matters for the Christian Counseling Program at Zoe Fellowship Bible College. Yay! Excited to be able to share and empower us to be effective Christian counselors and helping those that are in relationships, whether that is a marital relationship or whether it is two people that are preparing for marriage, or dating or courting, if you will, have a term you want to use it, but they are preparing to get married. And so we want to make sure that we are sharing the information with them to help them not only have a healthy engagement, but also a healthy marriage, a godly marriage. And so we've been talking about preparing for marriage. We've been talking about the importance of embracing the single life and being whole and complete until you get married. And then we've been talking about communication in marriage, how to communicate effectively with a spouse. And so we want to make sure that as we are sharing with these couples, that we are giving them the information they need in order for them to have a healthy marriage. So we've been talking about communication, um, his needs, her needs. And now we are going to kind of share about money matters. Now, a lot of times when people are in relationship and marriages, there are quite a few barriers that create friction, division, strife, arguments, if you will. And some of those reasons could very well be because one, we've talked about communication, because some person may communicate in one style and the other one is communicating in another style, but they're not understanding one another, or they're not communicating where the other spouse has understanding, clarity, and knows what to do. So sometimes, or there is a lack of communication. There is no communication. He don't talk to her and she don't talk to him, right? They're just coexisting. And so that creates a lot of friction in relationships and barriers. Then there are times when we talked about her needs, his needs, the intimacy. Sometimes the intimacy is not on the same level. Everybody's not on the same page. Everybody's not moving the same speed, if you will, right? One spouse, let's say the male, we talked about how the male wanted more intimacy, more sexual intimacy with his wife. And so if the wife is not moving at the speed that the husband may want, it could create some friction and some barriers and some division. And that can go both ways. Okay. You may have a wife that she's moving at 75 and her husband is moving at 45. And so there's some friction there, right? And so talking with them and helping them to understand that and how to effectively engage in that relationship. So then we come back to an area tonight where we're going to be talking about is the money matters. When the money is not right in the home, and maybe you have experienced this yourself, but when the money is not right, they say the honey ain't right. Money ain't right. Things just not right. Hey, there's no communication, there's frustration. There's one person going in one room, the other one going in the other, because there's an issue with the finances, and the two individuals cannot come together to make this thing work. All right. So in chapter 13 in our book, it talks about the money matters. And I think we shared one time before in our discussion, we were talking about how sometimes one spouse may be better at the finances than another, right? And so uh, for that spouse, it may be the man who is better with the finances, because you find that the woman, she may go shopping, she sees something every time she look in a store, she coming out with bags, right? Or she's buying this for the children and that and this and that. And she may even say, well, I'm buying something for you too, honey. But no, you spending the mortgage money. So that's not going to work, right? And then there may be times when the wife can handle the money. She knows how to budget everything. She got everything calculated, got her budget journals, and she knows, got the checking account situated. She got things coming out at certain times of the month. But then a husband may not want her to handle it. Maybe a little pride, maybe a little insecurity, but every time you turn around, he's bouncing all other chicks. Whoop, we got a problem, right? So somebody got to swallow their pride, whether that's the female or the male, to say, hey, I'm not that good at this area. But that doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that's not your expertise. That's not your specialty, as people say. You got to have, you're a specialist of this, right? That may not be your cup of tea. And so we've got to encourage and understand and help couples. Who is better at the finances? And they got to be honest. They got to be transparent. They got to be real, right? Because it's very important that those things are addressed so there can be peace in the home. So it says most marital arguments and frustrations stem from money. Now, maybe you've been through it. I think every marriage goes through something concerning that money. Somehow it's like a test. I don't know if it's like a pre-test or it's a test that goes on in marriages pertaining to that money. Okay. Sometimes people have, you have some families, and you have to find out from those couples, is this, everybody has their check. Are we putting it all in one account? Is there separate accounts? Is there accounts for just the house bills? Everybody got their own little stash. You have to determine, because you can't just give to this couple what works for you as the counselor. You have to determine and help the couple to identify who, how are we going to do this? Okay. Because just what works for you may not work for another couple. And a lot of times you may hear people saying, I don't know, I can't remember if it's in this book or not, but how some people feel as though if you're married, you're one, all of your money should be one. Well, you have to determine that. They have to determine that. Maybe there's been some past money issues as they were growing up. How did they view money? How was money talked about when you were growing up? And this is something that you can begin to ask the couple, because you got to find out how they see money. Some people see it like, those old sayings. They might have gone to their mother and father for things, and their mother and father would say, money don't grow on trees. I'm not no ATM machine. And so maybe their viewpoint of money is there's a scarcity. It's not enough. Hmm. So their mindset is, I got to hold back. I can't do this. I can't spend. Then there might have been some that grew up and maybe they were only child and everything they asked for, they got. And daddy took care of everything. Maybe they were, daddy took care, daddy provided, right? So growing up and then they walk into this relationship, they think the woman is thinking that daddy takes care of everything. So my husband got to take care of everything. And sometimes a husband might feel that's too much pressure because he didn't grow up like that. He grew up mama and daddy work. And so mom and daddy work, he feel his wife should work, but his wife is saying, no, I don't have to work. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to stay home. My daddy used to take care of me and my mama. So sometimes we carry what we've learned about money into our relationships. And so that's something that maybe you can begin to think about. How did you see money as you grew up? What was said about money? How were you raised concerning money? Was it a lot of it? Was it scarce? Were you I've had some people come in the session. Listen, we were always trying to find food. Poor, poverty. So where did it come from? So that's something that you can begin to talk with these couples that you're working with. How do you see money? How was it when you were coming up? What was said about money? Because sometimes even some families, they didn't talk about money. They didn't talk about money. They didn't talk about who made what, and they ain't talk about who brought in what or anything like that. So here they come into a relationship and their spouse wants to know, well, how much money are you bringing to the table? Oh, no, I don't discuss money. No, what? Why you need to know that? Why you need to know what's in my check, right? So sometimes it creates a barrier. Something to think about. Something to think about. So most marital arguments and frustrations stem from money. Uh, it was, okay, we're moving on. Often people, especially Christians, second paragraph, are quick to blame two parties for their financial problems. The devil or the country's economy. This is what the author is saying. In reality, they had nothing to do with it. It was a management problem on their part. Okay. Money management. So that's something you can begin to talk to. How are you managing your money? And sometimes you may have to ask them to look at their checking account statement. You want to know how people are spending, what's going on? They don't know. I don't know where the money is going. Pull out your statement for the last 30, 60 days and let's see where the money is going. All right. That'll tell a whole lot of little different stories. All right. So there's something you can begin to do to have these conversations with them. Third paragraph says these people often feel that their worth lies. Here we go. Some people strive to obtain money for power. They esteem the wealthy while ignoring the hardworking middle and lower class. Okay, got to know how they were how people were raised. These people often feel that their worth lies in the amount of their annual income. They strive to replace spiritual things with money. The Bible says that this love of money is the root of all evil. When people seek after money more than they seek the Lord, they end up with many problems, right? So then you have people that have a love for money. Now, it's okay to, hey, I love to have me some money. Now, money answers all things, as the Bible said, right? But when you get to the place where money is just your focal, that's it. That's your focus. I got to get this money. I got to get it. You know how people chasing money, chasing money, chasing money. It's just trying to get this money because they have equated money to being valuable. and your money don't make you valuable. You need to know that you are valuable with or without money. Okay. So you got to think about some of the people that you may be working with. Okay. So they feel their worth lies in the amount of their annual income. And sometimes you will have some people feel that way, that money makes them valuable. Thinking about a couple that I'm working with now, the male makes this money, a lot of money, and he equates him being successful because he makes this money. And if he doesn't make this money, or if he doesn't perform, then he feels less than. So we got to realize that understanding people's value and where they see themselves, you got to see yourself beyond just the money. All right, so we're going to flip on over to page 142. It says, I found that first kind of paragraph, I found that most couples spend more time planning the details of their wedding ceremony than they do their financial future. The fact is, it's vital that you and your spouse develop a solid plan for your monetary survival and well-being of your family. And I think we talked about that before for those that were preparing to get married, that oftentimes you hear couples that are preparing, and those might be people that you will counsel, those at premarital counseling, that they're so caught up in the day. Oh, I got to have 20 uh, bridesmaids and 20 groomsmen, and we're going to spend about 20, 30,000 on the wedding day, right? That lasts about, I don't know, maybe about 1, 2 hours, it's short. Okay. And you talking about putting out $30,000, right? Um, I don't know if that's any of y'all, but God bless you. But $30,000, right? And but you got to live the next day. They have to live the next day. So when you get ready to help them, premarital counseling, say, and they're talking about dishing out $30,000. Now that's their choice. That's their day. They want to do. But if you're guiding them financially, let's look at what's going to happen the next day. Do you all own a home? If they ain't got a home, they're living in an apartment. They living in mom and dad's house. They had, their in-laws. Or we're going to stay at our in-laws for about another 6 months to a year. And so we can build up some more money. And then we'll go ahead and get it down. Why? Why not use that money that you're planning for this wedding? Cut it in half or third and think about the days after, because there are days after that they will need finances. The days after. Okay. All right. So um, it says, don't use the time to argue or point out the blame game. They're talking about getting prepared and talking about uh, preparing for financial talks and discussions and financial plans. So page 142, it talks about creating a budget, right? A lot of times people don't want to hear that word budget. Ooh, that restrains me. That's a barrier. You mean I got to, I can't buy what I want. You can't. Well, guess what? Everybody on here is on a budget. Everybody you encounter, whether they realize it or not, they are on a budget. They may not want what? I can't get the shoes. I can't buy the suit. What? Everybody's on a budget. Okay. So Luke 14 and 28 tells us, for which of you intending to build a tower sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it, right? Counting up the cost, right? That's what they're beginning to create a budget. So you want to walk your couples through creating a budget. And there are quite a few budget templates that can be used to begin to share with them and to walk them through creating a budget. All right. So he gives us a couple of points about money matters, and we're going to go through those very quickly, and we'll move on. So it says, first, put God first. Number one. So if you're counseling these couples, put God first. He says here, your first obligation is to tithe. Okay, putting God first. That's interesting. All right, so we wanted to encourage those couples to put God first. Now, what if you are dealing with a couple that is a atheist? They're backslided. They don't believe. They're not into God. They might have been before, but they're not into. So, uh, you have to be mindful of how to address this key point, because we are in a Bible college and we're Christian counselors. Our main goal, yes, of course, is to point the people back to God, right? So we're telling them to put God first. But if you so happen to be dealing with someone that does not believe God, I mean, you can mention it, but they may not be receptive to it. So you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're dealing with. Okay. All right. So that's something to think about. But he's saying here, for the most part, you're going to, let's say you're going to be dealing with those that are Christians, right? So you're going to put God first. Telling them to tithe, telling them to honor God um, through their tithe and their offerings and giving unto the Lord, right? The second would be, he says, add in the mortgage, okay? Because you want to make sure that the individuals are making sure that they pay the mortgage, right? You need a roof over your head. You need a place for their family. They may have, they're preparing for children. And so as you're helping them to create a budget, make sure they're paying their mortgage or their rent. Okay, whatever it is, the situation that they are in as far as their living arrangements, right? Then he goes on to say, make sure you eat. Okay, so you're adding to that food, that budget, the food. He's saying, first, put God first. Make sure you have a roof over your head, and then make sure now that you have food and nourishment. He said, you and your children have to eat. Put the food expenses in your budget before the utility bills. If the electricity gets shut off, you may have to eat by candlelight, but at least you are eating. Well, another thing is, if the utilities are off, the electricity off, it depends how long it's going to be off. You ain't going to have nothing to eat out the refrigerator. Peanut butter and jelly, something, I don't know. Hey, some of those non-perishables that you can do if the electricity go out. We got to prepare for stuff like that. There's a lot of things being said by that. So anyway, so he said, make sure you eat. All right, get the food. Then it says, include the cost of transportation. This is where your car note or your public transportation is listed. So you're encouraging them through this book. What he's sharing with us is to include the cost of transportation, because if they have to go certain places to go to work in order to get their money, they got to have some type of transportation. So these are one of the things that you can begin to share. If it says, if you don't allot money for transportation, what difference does it make if the electricity is on? Okay, he ain't worried about no lights. Candles, right? Improvising, right? But making sure you have transportation to get to where you need to go so that they can make the money that they need to make. All right, then he says, list your utilities. Here we go. Determine what your electricity, gas, waste disposal, and water costs are monthly, but estimate a slightly higher figure when adding them to your budget so that you can have some other extra finances. Okay. And so these are some of the areas where he begins to share about how to put together this particular budget. Put God first, add in the mortgage, get your food, get your transportation, and let's get your utilities. Okay. Then he begins to talk about other areas of interest. After these necessities, page 145, give yourself a clothing budget. I'm not talking about a designer wardrobe, he says. Some people wear the same clothes all the time, and that's okay. If you only have 3 dresses, this is to the female, make sure they are always clean and ironed. Could you imagine having 3 dresses and that's all you got? Oh, my. Thank you, Jesus, for what he has provided us with. Men with 3 suits, and that's all you got. Mm, thanks be unto God. Listen, that's something to tell God thank you. If you got 3 or you got more than 3, you better tell God thank you for what he has done, because he didn't have to do it. Some of us got so many dresses and suits and shoes. Oh my goodness, we don't even know what to choose. We got a whole store in a walk-in closet. Okay. And so I just want to give a shout out for God. God, thank you for making provisions, because he didn't have to do it. Right. And so we've been blessed. We've been blessed. And so he's saying, if you ain't got but 3 dresses, listen, you got to work with what you got. Right. Work with what you got. If you don't have but 3 dresses, thank God for the 3 dresses and work with what you got, because we all had to do that at some point. You know, you only had a few pairs of shoes. Thanks be unto God. But then the shoes increased. Thank you, Jesus. Sometimes it's good to sew a dress or a shoe or a suit every now and then, because that thing will come back to you. But anyway, that's another thing. All right. So he says, let's get this clothing wardrobe together, the budget. Look at the best you can on the budget you have. In addition, he says, talking about credit cards. Don't forget to consider your credit card. Sometimes couples get into these big arguments, like we said, discussions about money. Somebody that charged up all the credit cards, and all you got is credit card debt, 50 and 60,000, $80,000 of credit card debt. Woo, my Lord, that's enough to stress you out, have anxiety, maybe be a little depressed. My God, listen, you got to watch the spending habits. And that's what you have to encourage those that you are going to be mindful of your spending habits. That's why it's always good. Look at your checking account. Pull out your checking account and see where your money is going. So he's talking about credit cards. They are designed to keep you eternally in debt. Hey, he said internally in debt if you only pay the minimum balance due each month. Okay. So it's important to add on. And sometimes you may want to encourage those couples to tackle the debt, tackle the ones that may be smaller. Let's knock this out. Okay, let's go on and move to the next one. Let's knock this out. Working together as a team to get yourselves out of debt. A lot of times couples try to do it separately, right? Coming together as a team, as a unit, as husband and wife, as one, let's tackle this thing together. And so you can encourage them to do so. Now, it all depends on how they see money, because some people say, well, that's his debt. That ain't my debt. Or that's her debt. She created that mess. I don't feel like I should be obligated to clear her out of debt. So you got to find out where the couples are. And so realizing that, hey, but she's drowning and she needs your help. And especially if you got the money and you don't want to help your spouse, and it's affecting the household, it's affecting if y'all want to purchase something together and her credit's not right and you're not going to help, or his credit not right, you got to think about the common goal. The common goal is we're going to buy a house or houses. And so we got to help. This is a season where we got to help each other get out of debt. And so that means, the two shall become one. So you got to help that couple realize y'all on the same team. Y'all not separate. Y'all not on separate teams. Just y'all in the same team. All right. So as we said, that oftentimes that money thing creates a lot of friction. So he talks about the credit card debt. Then he talks about page 146 about saving and investing. Okay. Where to get that savings account together. It says it's important to have a savings account. A lot of times people don't be thinking about no savings account. They just trying to pay their bills and get. So you have to encourage them that you got to save, put something away. And then that goes back to how did they see money growing up? Okay. Maybe grandmama put that money up, put it in, she put it in under that mattress, or she put it somewhere and hid it. Maybe you had somebody in the family and they used to stash money in the house. I know my daddy used to stash money. When he passed away, I looked in them pockets and them jackets and I found over $500 just stashed, just keeping it, just holding it just in case money, right? That cash money. So savings account, getting them prepared to save, whether that's an individual account. And it's okay if they're married and they have a joint account for the savings and then they have their own personal savings, because sometimes you don't want to pull from the house money, right? Especially if you're going to do certain things and maybe you're going to different events or you're going to different outings and you want to utilize your own pocket money and not the money that is going towards the household. Okay. So encouraging them to save, doing so plans ahead for life's little surprises, such as a new baby, unemployment, or medical emergency. You know, maybe some of you have gone through uh, the new baby. Maybe you've had a season where you were unemployed and your spouse had to carry. Maybe there was a time when you were ill and you couldn't work. What do you do then? Right? So you want to prepare these couples that, hey, the wedding day is great, all of that. But what about if there's an emergency? What are we going to do if there is an how what's going to happen if one of us can't work? Well, what do we do then, right? So sometimes preparing them to have a savings or even to have a plan in place that if this were to happen, this is what we will do. All right. Instead of them going in a frenzy and a panic and and I got to hustle. I got to hustle. Right. But if you talk about these plans, all right, this is helping me and it's helping you, I hope, and everybody else that we go to help. All right. All right. So saving and investing. Here it talks about investing, and he says, well, being mindful of where you invest. Um, and you can give to whomever you want to give to. I know he talks about giving to a person that tithes. Well, you ain't gonna know who tithe all the time, right? You give as the Holy Spirit leads you to give. If you want to sow into somebody's ministry, do that. You want to sow into somebody who is a tither, do that. If you want to sow to somebody who is on the street and they're holding up a sign and they're asking for money and you feel led by the Holy Spirit to do that, do it. Right? You can also give to those who are in need, as he talks about in Proverbs 19 and 17. So you can look for fertile ground. That's great. Look for let me let me sow where I can. It's good ground. Let's get to the good ground, right? But then there are times that God will tell you to sow into people that don't have nothing. You're not going to get nothing in return. All right. But you're going to reap a harvest because whatever you sow, you will reap. Okay. You reap what you sow. That's Bible. Okay. Across the board. All right. Um, then it talks about borrowing or whether not to borrow. And that's something you can talk about as you're talking about the financial matters with these couples, borrowing or not to borrow. Okay. Down at the bottom, it says, as long as are easily paying off what you have borrowed, there's no problem with it. If you borrow, then pay it off. That's the only way it can be done successfully without putting your family in a bind, right? You're going to borrow the money, pay the money back. And don't get mad at the people when they call and why they harassing me about this payment? Because you borrowed it. I'd have been that way too. I'm sorry. I got to repent. Why they keep harassing me about this money? Yeah, because I owe it. So you want to help them get to the place that you borrowing something, pay it back and try your best to pay it back on time or before the time. Sometimes add a little extra. Tell them, listen, you're going to pay your mortgage payment on the first, pay the mortgage payment and add an extra $200 to it. You paying your car note, pay your car note, double it up if you can. Pay a little extra $100. It'll go towards it. All right. It'll knock it down. It'll knock it down. And before you know it, you have paid that thing off. So you want to encourage those couples to work together. They are on the same team. All right. So page 148, we're going to wind up here. The foundation for a successful money management comes through communication. They go that communication again. You must talk about why you are doing something, what you are spending, and when you want it done. All right. So communication is key. Communication, you often hear people say, well, how you stay together? Yeah, communication is key. Well, we keep God first. Communication is key. Because guess what? You got to communicate about God. You got to communicate about the money. You got to communicate about the intimacy. You got to communicate about the children. You got to communicate about everything. Come out of this right here, this mouth right here. You got to come out your mouth, right? So it's important to make sure that everybody's communication style is understood and people are clear in their communication, because yelling is not communicating. I don't care what well, maybe it is for some. Yeah, but all that yelling and carrying on, how we gonna solve this? And everybody yelling and fussing and whew, I can't do that. I don't know about y'all. But anyway, all that yelling is not going to get anybody anywhere. It's not. It's not going to solve not one thing. You yelling, they yelling, and ain't nobody hearing nothing. Okay. And nothing is getting done. Right. So everybody got to calm down and begin to get at a peace and then begin to communicate. All right. So as it says, one of the most common areas of miscommunication is the area of the checkbook. Okay, we're going to close the book right there. It's the checkbook that goes back to who's going to do it. This one going to be in charge of it? That one going to be in charge of it? Or is it going to be like a tug of war? No, I'm going to be in charge. Now you don't do that. They go to communication. Who is going to handle the money? And what does it look like handling the money? What does that look like for you? What have you seen concerning the money? Did your daddy do the checkbook and then come to find out other stuff was being spent and the checking account went on negative every month? Every month we had a negative. What's going on? Somebody need to check what is happening. Why we ain't got no money at the end of the month? Okay, so those things have to be talked about. Why you got 5 dresses? Look like you don't come in with 5 more dresses. and the light bill didn't get paid because you, hey, what's going on? We need to communicate, right? We need to find out who does this thing better. And whoever it is, the other person has to yield and go ahead and submit to that, because you don't want that whole household to be in an uproar because of money. And how you handle money is how you teaching the children to handle money. Well, mama always hide money from daddy. Uh-oh. So then what? Now she knows I will keep my own stash. It's okay to have your own stash. It's okay. Really, it is. But don't hide that money so much that when situations arise, you don't want to give up your money because it's your stash. No, come on now. We on the same team. You got to teach them they on the same team. They all playing a part, but they all on the same team, right? They're all on the same team. Y'all looked at the Super Bowl, what? It one team, all the team, but a lot of players, right? A lot of players. But the main goal, they all thinking about the same thing. Yay to the Eagles. All right. All right. So we will close out there tonight. Thank y'all so much. That's family. Family Matters is our class, but we're talking about the money manners. All right. So as you're beginning to work with couples and talking with them about money, prepare them for budget, prepare them to have things in order and in place, and that they know what it looks like going forward in their relationship, whether that's before they get married or they've been married for years. Maybe it's not working right. Okay, let's look at a new way of handling these finances to get y'all out of debt and to have peace. All right. God bless y'all tonight.